The following may contain offensive language, adult humor, and or content that some viewers may find offensive. The views and opinions expressed by any one speaker does not explicitly or necessarily reflect or represent those of Mark Radulich or W2M Network. Please listen with caution, or don't listen at all.
To On Trial, where we debate the merits of your favorite movies, poker and Hollywood, because I'm on trial.
Why does the song sound like he's trying to seduce us? You're on trial, baby.
That's how I win all my trials. Hello, Judge. Would you fuck me? Never mind. Anywho, yes, this is On Trial. Real quick, before I even get into anything, I think that's the first time I've actually used the theme since Jesse and I did it on sessions. I could not be happier with how that came out. And we did it because we can't use the Night Court theme anymore. It didn't copyright. So that's it. That was literally like, Jesse, the inspiration is the Night Court theme, and that's what AI did for us. So I like it. Ooh, on trial. Literally, when we were putting in genres, we put sleazy saxophone, and I said this saxophone has to be sexually predatory. And I think we accomplished that.
That saxophone's on a list.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That saxophone is creeping through a window. All right.
That saxophone has been banned from several bars in the tri-state area.
That is correct. All right. This is On Trial, the podcast where we put your favorite movies on trial and Hollywood at large. I am your host. I'm not the judge tonight. I'm not a prosecuting attorney. I'm not a defending attorney. I'm just a mere podcast host. Mr. Mark Radulich, your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified. And joining me from Frikey Pictures, I'll do it right this time, once, is Dorian Price doing his best Tim Burton cosplay. How do you do, sir?
Not too bad, boss. How we doing?
I could not be better. And down there, she might be a character from Beetlejuice, or she might be Poison Ivy. We're not entirely sure. Ladies and gentlemen, Chae Tate.
It's slightly ambiguous. It can go either way.
They're both Warner Brothers characters. We're not stealing.
I think there's a third option. You could have been one of the lady green aliens that Captain Kirk slept with in many an episode of Star Trek. There's a lot of options
I'm
here.
the product of one of those. Captain Kirk is my deadbeat dad.
He is the illegitimate child of Captain Kirk.
If you look up Star Trek memes, there's one where this girl went as a Orion slave girl, but she was very pregnant during the convention. So she just still did the costume and had a sign around her neck saying, "Looking for James T. Kirk."
That's amazing. Well, folks, Beetlejuice, as of tonight, is in theaters now. God help us all. So we are doing a little bit of synergy here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. The movie on the docket tonight is Beetlejuice from 1988. Beetlejuice is an American dark fantasy horror comedy film directed by film's greatest monster, Tim Burton, from a screenplay by Michael McDowell and Warren Skaaren, based on a story by McDowell and Larry Wilson. It stars Alec Baldwin before he became Hollywood's greatest villain, Geena Davis, Jeffrey Jones, Catherine O'Hara, and quite possibly her best performance ever, Winona Ryder, and Michael Keaton as the title character. It was made on a budget of $15 million. It made $75.1 million. It has won numerous awards. It spawned an animated television series, a video game, and the stage musical, which is how my daughter came to Beetlejuice and became a huge fan. So she actually saw the musical first, then watched the movie, etc., etc. So huge fan. Can't wait for the sequel. We're not doing the traditional debate style format tonight because there's more than two of us. So we're just going to do a straight movie review. It's what I like to call a plea bargain episode. So Dorian and Chae, I don't hate this movie. Let's start there. I don't hate it. I just don't have the wild, exuberant love affair that many seem to. I saw it when I was 12, I think. When it came out, I think my parents took me to the movies to go see it, and I probably watched it a bunch when it was on HBO, and it was alright. It was alright. It was fine.
It's all right.
As a kid who would grow up to be firmly entrenched in the goth and metal culture, I could certainly appreciate what Tim Burton and Michael Keaton and Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin were going for in this movie. But I saw it when I was 12, and then I was like, all right, moving on to other things. I don't get surprised by much. And a lot of things I can kind of look at and go, I understand why this is capturing people's attention. This is one of those where I don't get it. I do not understand why, these many years later, like we're going on almost 40 years here.
It's 36 years old this year, yeah.
Yeah. Why this thing continues to have the wild popularity that it does. So we can speak to that. But first, Dorian and then Chae, why don't you tell me what your personal attachment to the movie is?
Well, first of all, let me say something. Whoever did the banner for the on trial thing, Beetlejuice came out in 1988, not 1996. So watch yourself.
Oh shit. Okay, hang on. I'll fix that.
It's like, objection, Your Honor. Right off the bat, we've got problems.
Yeah, that all my other stuff was correct. I just didn't do that part of it because you know what it was. The last on trial was for Twister, 1996. So there.
Oh, that makes sense. But anyways, while you're fixing that, my introduction to it was first there you go. Thank you, because I'm a picky bitch. My introduction to it was reruns of the cartoon show, and then discovering there was a movie. And yes, Mr. and I don't remember exactly how you said it, boss, but it was like Mr. and Mrs. Churchy McChurcherson. Actually,
Churchy McGee.
Churchy McGee. Thank you. My legal guardians did allow me to watch the movie. Because it was PG and there wasn't anything horrifically like. There's one kind of overly sexual scene where Juno creates a brothel to
yes,
distract Beetlejuice, and they're all being
it's a little more than that, but we'll talk about it.
Right, and he's all horny because he's got thorns coming out of him.
Literal.
The theme that you heard at the start of this podcast was playing as he walks up.
Yeah, girls. Michael Keaton's like, because I'm all on trial. Sexual assaults.
But anyways, I ended up loving the movie. The character has become iconic in my head. It is that Burton black and white striped look that he's done over and over again. But I think Michael Keaton's performance, and I'll get to this in the notes, but is really what in answer to your question, why it's lasted so many years. And again, I'll get into that a little later in more detail. But for me, it was just one of those fun Halloween movies that, even church groups were usually okay with watching because it's like, it's not that bad. I mean, there's no sacrilege in it. We're fine. And it was right at the tail end of the 80s, fucking your childhood up, as I would discover. Because again, I'm born in 1997, so I miss all that. So it's not to the mid 2000s that I find out what they fucking did in the 80s. And I'm like, again, Return to Oz, Dorothy Gale. It's like, whoa, okay, fuck your childhood.
Real quick. So my girlfriend has a paddle on her, on her nightstand, and it has a adult engraving on it. And it's a nice piece of artwork. And she was like, "Where do I put this?" And I'm like, "Not in front of my children. That's where." So she has it on the nightstand. And the kids, they're 13 and 10. They don't come in the room all that much. There's no reason to. So she was like, "It's fine if you just leave it on your nightstand as a piece of art." So having said that, my son walks into the bedroom because he needs to tell me something, because he's always needs to tell me something when he's not running into the wall. He's 10, by the way. And he turns around and he sees the paddle and he goes, "Well, that makes me uncomfortable." And so Jenny looks at me, she's like, "Oh, God damn it, it's the exact thing you didn't want." And I'm like, "Yeah, it happens." So he leaves the room, and she's like, "Should I just take it down? Should I hide this?" And I'm like, "No, he doesn't belong in here in the first place." Also, I saw much worse stuff when I was a kid. My dad left porn lying around. He's fine. I mean, look at all the stuff I got exposed to as a child I shouldn't have, and look how I turned out.
It's like I turned out. You know what? Maybe that's not a very good defense.
You know what? Burn the house down. It's fine. We'll start over again.
Etch a sketch into the world.
Yes.
But no, so just wrapping up again,
Yeah.
I've loved this movie since I saw it the first time. I love the cartoon show. I actually did a proof of concept that I finished literally the day they announced Beetlejuice that I was going to send into Warner Brothers, but didn't get the chance to. Still going to do a trailer of it using some deep fake stuff at some point, just because I really like the idea. But again, the whole world of this character is just very, very fun, and it's iconic. It's a film that'll never go away.
That's fair. Chae, you're up.
At this point, I don't feel nearly as bad as for being exposed to horror movies as early as I have. God damn, porn. Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you stories later next time we hang out.
Oh, absolutely. So
Tales from the Radulich.
Yeah, the crypt keeper is an old guy with his bathrobe that's never tied. You're like, why? Why?
We'll start filming
friends
tomorrow.
are here. Sorry, keep going.
Coming soon on Shudder. Go ahead, Chae.
My experience with Beetlejuice is my mom really liked the movie. It was PG. Beetlejuice has been around since as long as I can remember. I know we had an old VHS that I watched all the damn time. It was a huge influence on me, being a huge fan first of the Universal monsters, and also of the German Expressionist art style, and basically all things creepy. I was kind of set up to be a weird Tim Burton kid. My first memory is of Bloodstone, which is the Full Moon Picture Subspecies 2.
Hey, real quick, what's German Expressionism in 50 words or less?
So German Expressionism is an art style that Tim Burton actually really heavily influenced by. German Expressionism is an art style that started in the early 1920s and went into the 1930s. It's the art style that Nosferatu and Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and a lot of the German silent movies of the 1920s were filmed in. It's very sharp lines. It's very
skewed angles.
Yeah. Hard angles. Very sharp, very dreamlike. And very, very theatrical, because it started as a theatrical
style.
Yes.
Yeah, it's basically regular movies and regular architecture. This is your brain, and you hold up German expressionism. It's like, this is your brain on all the acid and cocaine at the same time.
Yes.
So Tim Burton got popular due to his direction on Pee-wee's Big Adventure, if I remember correctly,
yeah.
Which was the big screen adaptation of Pee Wee Herman's television show, Pee Wee's Playhouse. God, I remember that one as a kid too. I will know. There's the weird things that scare you as a kid. Tell them Lodge Maud sent you, and it was dove out of the theater. So they were looking to. So at that point, Tim Burton is now, an It director. That they're looking to get him to do something else. Tim Burton's like throwing scripts in the trash, like this is all terrible. But he's looking for something that can really get his juices flowing. It's funny. I was reading through the Wikipedia, and it says Burton had become disheartened by the lack of imagination and originality in the scripts he had been sent, particularly Hot to Trot, which made me laugh because I actually remember that movie with Bobcat Goldthwait, and I'm like, ouch, that hurts.
Imagine if he directed that though in his own style.
My God, could you imagine what he would have done to that poor horse?
A lot of Tim Burton's really good stuff came out of him being bored and angry.
That's the way to motivate him. It's amazing.
Because Nightmare Before Christmas came out because he was real pissed about having to work on Fox and the Hound.
Oh, that's interesting. So Michael McDowell and Larry Wilson formed a partnership with entertainment attorney Michael Bender, and Beetlejuice was their first original project. After developing the story, McDowell and Wilson decided they would write the first draft of the screenplay together, while Wilson would only take a story by credit as well as the producer credit. And I don't know if you want to jump in here with some of your notes, Dorian, but the one thing I wanted to throw out there was apparently the original script for Beetlejuice was much darker. There was some significant changes to the tone of this, to I think the movie's credit, because I think this works better as, and this subject came up when Megan came out about a year or so ago. When you're a child, when you're introduced to light horror, what are your first introductions to the horror genre? Now, if you grew up in the 80s, anything and everything. Like there were no distinctions. But
I've seen some 80s horror movies as an adult, and it's like, what the fuck?
Like, there's a lot of cocaine out there, huh? Yeah, but that was one of the things that Robert brought up when we were discussing Megan. He was like, we were talking about like, when was your first experience with horror movies, and he was like, I don't know, The Secret of Nim. Like there's so much out there that dabbled in different genres, horror being one of them. So Beetlejuice is one of those where even with a little bit of cursing and sexual innuendo here and there, the stop motion animation, the supernatural stuff is light enough that a kid can enjoy it, but saucy enough that that an adult will get it and have fun with this. And in its time, at that point, I could see why it had wide appeal. What else do we know about this movie, Dorian?
This again, you were talking about the script being much darker. There was a rape scene involved. The Beetlejuice trying to fuck an underage girl was much harsher pushed. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, don't worry, that's taken out. He does try to marry her, which again, we saved the day because we have to. But yes, it was much more dark and twisted. There were a lot more murders. Again, it had a body count originally. And Burton saw it and went, and turned to the Warner execs, and the Warner execs went, oh God, no. What the fuck do they think this is? Nightmare on Elm Street? We won't own that for another 15 years. Tim, can we cut this down? Yeah, let's cut this. Yeah, okay.
We're trying to make a family picture here. What are you psychos doing?
Do you need help? Who hurt you? But so yes, Burton would take it and would be involved in many of the rewrites to tone it down a little bit, but still keep the look. Unconfirmed reports that have been said by the writers and then kind of taken back and then said again was that this was the idea of it came while they were watching The Exorcist, and they went, what if it was the other way around? Could you imagine being a ghost and wanting to hire someone to get these people out the fuck out of your house, much as if you were a human being, you would hire an exorcist to get the demons and the ghosts and shit out of your house. So that became the basis for the character that would be known as Beetlejuice. The biggest fights in the movie was the spelling of the character's name, because as you'll see it in the movie, it is spelled Bettlegeuse. And they're like, that's going to confuse the fuck out of everyone. And they ended up making a joke in the cartoon where they call him Betelgeuse.
That's okay. They do it in the movie too. There's a couple.
There's also a joke in the. There's also a joke in the stage play or the musical. Where he says, and my name is Beetleghijk. Jesus, I can't spell.
So my son, we were watching it today before just set up for the show, and my son goes, my favorite gag in this entire movie is that Alec Baldwin can't read. Like, and I laugh pretty hard at that because there was a couple of times where they do a joke where Alec Baldwin mispronounces something.
Yeah. The other thing that was really funny was the title of the movie was changed several times, and Warner Brothers didn't like some of the things that Burton was pitching. And so finally, he jokingly and kind of angrily said, screw it, we'll just call it Scared Sheetless. And the execs went, ooh, I like that. And it's like, no, I'm
never pitch something you think is just a funny joke.
So after much debate, it was finally locked down as Beetlejuice, spelled as juice, because it was the 80s and they still believed that audiences were stupid and couldn't figure things out. No. Go ahead. Speak your mind. Share with the class.
I do want to read this one bit of casting here because this is pretty hilarious stuff. Burton's original choice for Beetlejuice was Sammy Davis Jr. I just want to be in the pitch meeting for that. Like, who are we thinking? You know, we need a star for this. We got Geena Davis, we got Alec Baldwin, but we need who's big right now. What name can we put out? Like the conversation we were having on a week ago, this past Monday, about like Al Pacino and The Godfather. Like, who are we going to get to star in this thing? And he throws out there Sammy Davis Jr. How do you not punch Tim Burton right across the table? Get out of here, you nut job! Like, what do you want to have Frank Sinatra too? You'll do the whole Rat Pack, you nut job. But the producers also considered Dudley Moore, which would have also been hysterical. And I didn't know this until just now reading it. But let me tell you how I am a huge Sam Kinison fan. Like, he's on my Mount Rushmore of comics. It's like him, Pryor, Cosby. I don't want to get into it. And then Andrew Dice Clay. I have played like the Sam Kinison stuff for my kids. Could you imagine Beetlejuice as Sam Kinison? Like, get out of the house! Right. You live in a desert. Sorry, you live in a desert bit. You live in a desert bit. My son and I do constantly. And just as an aside, the ex-wife and I used to actually say that to each other. We were like, "Still love you, honey." It's a Sam Kinison thing. Anyway, I will not soon forget that. But Geffen suggested Keaton. Burton was unfamiliar with Keaton's work, but was quickly convinced. Several actresses auditioned for the role of Lydia Dietz, including Sarah Jessica Parker. Could you imagine? Brooke Shields. Yikes. Lori Loughlin. Diane Lane. Justine Bateman. See, I could have seen Justine Bateman doing it. Molly Ringwald. Juliette Lewis, definitely. And Jennifer Connelly. Alyssa Milano was the runner-up for that role. I want to live in the world where Alyssa Milano is Lydia Dietz, so they goth her all up. And then I'm going to need a hot shower. Let's see here. Burton cast Ryder upon seeing her in Lucas. Angelica Houston, which originally cast as Delia Dietz, but dropped out because of illness. O'Hara quickly signed on, while Burton claimed it took a lot of time to convince other cast members to sign, as they didn't know what to think of the weird script. Yeah, I can see that. The fucking acid trip is this? So, Dorian, if you got anything else, go ahead and shoot it across the bow. Otherwise, we'll get into the plot synopsis for this thing.
Let's go into the plot synopsis because I can bring the rest up during basically the craft review.
Okay. So, without going into a whole long thing, it goes like this. Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin live in a wonderful house in the Connecticut countryside, and a dog murders them. As I explained to my kids, never swerve for an animal. Drive right into it. Let the animal fend for itself. But that's what happens. Geena Davis goes through the bridge from Sleepy fucking Hollow and drives into the water. They both drown. They shortly thereafter realize they are dead. And shortly thereafter that, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and what's the actor's name? Jeffrey Jones move into the house, and I was thinking about introducing this movie. I said, this is a movie about a throuple between a man, a woman, and a house. That house is a part of that relationship in a weird way. And much like the mountains, Daffy Duck doesn't want them painted. They don't want just any old shitty people to live in this house. So it's exactly what Catherine O'Hara and Jeffrey Jones are. So realizing that they are ghosts and they have the power to scare these people away, that is in fact what they attempt to do and fail miserably at it. There's a lot of world building as far as, what does this afterlife look like? What do you do in the afterlife? How does being a ghost work? There's a couple of scenes where they're like, in a afterlife office where they have to, deal with their counselor, and their counselor kind of explains a few things to them. They also learn of a depraved afterlife deity named Beetlejuice, who they are warned several times, do not let out. He has done terrible, terrible things and will not work with you in the way that you think. He will manipulate you. He will do harmful things. Don't let him out. So that's in fact what they do, because they keep failing at this. We meet Lydia Dietz, who is Winona Ryder, and she's a sad gothic teenager who writes poetry, and it's just everything that we would come to know the 90s as being, everything we talked about on The Crow. Eventually they decide, having figured out they can't get rid of these people. As a matter of fact, the more they try, the more they want to live there. More to the point, Jeffrey Jones is like, we have ghosts here, hot dog, we can make this a paranormal attraction. And this goes on and on. There's a dinner party, and this is the best scene in the entire movie, where because Alec Baldwin's character likes Calypso music, they do the sound of the Banana Boat song. They possess everybody at the dinner table, and then the shrimp grabs them, and it's hilarious. But none of that works. It only reinforces that these people want to stay here. So with nothing else left to do, they call on Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice makes a mess of things. He tries to marry Winona Ryder, yada, yada, yada. It ends with, there's a couple of sequences where trying to get out of leaving the house ends with the characters being transported to this like limbo area where there's some sort of like Dune-esque sand snake. And at the end of the movie, Geena Davis comes riding in like Zendaya on the stupid thing, and it eats Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice goes back to the afterlife. At that point, we flash forward, and both the Dietzes and Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin all agree to live in the house in harmony. They are kind of like Lydia Dietz's adopted parents, and all's well that ends well in Beetlejuice. So I'm going to go over to you first, Chae. Tell me your thoughts on this movie. What do you want to talk about first?
Honestly, I fucking love this movie.
But why?
It's because there's so much left to the imagination. It's almost a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And I know not a lot of this is intentional, but they put a lot of really strange little details in the background and in the foreground and just fucking everywhere. That you can kind of run off with it. Like, I've got my own theories on exactly how old Beetlejuice actually is. I think he died in the 1960s, the early 60s.
Yeah, I can see that. I would
like,
go back to maybe a little bit of the 50s, but yeah, probably like late 50s, early 60s.
Yeah, late 50s, early 60s, especially based off of the costumes and the fact that he has like 6 or 7 watches on his hands most of the time. It's very obvious that he was a huckster, and anything that he's saying is lying.
Yeah, he has kind of like an Archie Bunker feel to him at times.
I don't know who that is.
God damn it!
I don't know anything other than horror.
Got it. Moving
on. But yeah, he's obviously, he was some kind of salesman, and the makeup that they put him in kind of indicates that he was buried alive, and some of the commentary that Juno makes like really kind of hits home that he died in that like late 50s, early 60s era, and he was just a really shitty person in life.
Right.
Which is why he is how he is in death.
Yeah, he has a like fast talking thing going on where he's clearly he didn't develop a taste for manipulating people after he died. That's how he was in life too. He was a snake oil salesman.
Oh yeah. He was definitely a snake oil salesman. Half those watches that he was selling you did not work.
Right. They were mostly stolen.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you specifically, as a makeup and arts and stage person, what did you think of the set design?
I absolutely loved the set design. My most of my background is actually in theatrical performances. So this movie was very reminiscent of stage performances and vaudeville, and it, again, I have said, it is very German expressionist. It is very theatrical. It's not supposed to take place in the real world. It has real performers, but it is a fantasy all of its own.
Yeah, I would agree with that. it feels like if someone were trying to in the 80s write a Grimm's fairy tale, this is what they would come up
Yeah.
with.
Yes.
All right, Dorian, why do you love it so much? Why are you here tonight?
Well, because this movie is just it is just so fantastic, and here's why. It's a very simple plot, but it's so turned on its head. Normally, family goes into the house, and the ghosts are our villains. You know,
Right.
they're the ones that we're trying to fight, and we're rooting for our poor family that's moved in. God, why would you do this? This was fun because it was so different in the sense that we're rooting for our ghosts because
when do you root for the poltergeist?
Right, in Beetlejuice you do. Because Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis are so wholesome and just a great couple that it's like, man, really killed by a dog? What the fuck?
I feel like that dog had a massive vendetta against them because the first theme that he showed up,
dog checked to see if
like,
you were dead.
Them.
that dog looked into the water like, did I get him? All right, fuck with me.
That's what you get for making a fucking model store in my town. We only want blackjack and hookers here.
Yeah, I want to see this. I want to see the movie, the spin-off movie that was about the dog and how he ran that town.
Exactly. And that to me is another one of the fun things about it is that not a lot of movies tackle the afterlife and what it looks like. And it is so fun to see the afterlife as this very just by the numbers.
It's kind of a DMV.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, you know what? That kind of tracks. I feel that really hard. And so, for me, it was the whole movie is just iconic. I remember so many scenes from it. And for me, that's what makes a good movie is like, if I remember stuff from it and will continue to quote for the rest of my life from this movie or from the movie, I know that it was good. And again, the horror aesthetic, allowed kids to be able to watch a horror movie, not to the level that their older brothers and parents could, like, Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th or blah, blah, blah. But in such a way that, they can still get the creepy aspect of it. And there's some really terrifying, the Tim Burton stop motion that he's so much a fan of. That sets it apart from a lot of more kid-friendly horror movies. Case in point, one of the most horrible family made for kid horror movies ever. All of the people who are my friends who are watching, I hope you're ready because you knew it was coming. Fucking Hocus Pocus. Beetlejuice is a fun, it's you can take kids to see it. They might get a little freaked out, but and so forth. But at the same time, it was.
Tell them you're on a podcast. God damn it!
I'm turning the phone off. I'm sorry. I don't know why it's supposed to be. It was on silent, but I think it's attaching to the computer. I do apologize for that. Anyways, Hocus Pocus is just, it's bad. It's not entertaining. It's not fun. I barely remember anything from it except fucking Sarah Jessica Parker up in the sky singing this song that they would steal for Anastasia later. And it seems like she's also, much like the On Trial theme, trying to seduce us. And,
Sarah Jessica Parker was horny on Maine that entire fucking movie.
That's fair. But it also was a situation that where what Beetlejuice did was, sorry, I'm trying to get him to shut up. What Beetlejuice did was it made a storyline that was fun and crazy and memorable. Hocus Pocus never did that, and I think that's what sets Beetlejuice apart and why so many movies like Paranorman or Monster House and so on and so forth are so good is because they did take that what Beetlejuice did well and take it fully home, and that's
okay. So I said at the beginning, because there's three of us here, I just wanted to talk tonight. I've done this before, like, when Pat and I did Josie and the Pussycats, we just talked. Though there is, with any review, I always deconstruct and pick things apart. And had it just been just myself and Chae or myself and Dorian tonight, I absolutely have my prosecuting arguments. There are some issues with this movie. Oh. My favorite criticism of this movie actually came. I just watched the honest trailer for it. And they were like, Beetlejuice, where the title character is only in the movie for 17 minutes.
Right.
It's a bit of a misnomer. This movie is not about Beetlejuice. He's barely the antagonist of this. The antagonists are I would say the antagonists are the Deets. You know, it's what the hell's her name? It's Della Deets and Charles. They're the ones that, because this is about the house. That's this whole movie. What's funny to me about Beetlejuice is I think, and you and I talked about this with Sleepy Hollow, how I said Tim Burton is a lot of style over substance.
Mhm.
And I think that works for a lot of people. Like they come to entertainment to be entertained. They're not looking necessarily to deconstruct and to take away some deep meaning. If it happens, great, but they're just as happy to have a wonderful images on the screen and fun characters and performances, and that's a lot of Beetlejuice, and it gets away with that, which is fine. And I don't take that away from the movie, but when you do start to examine it, and really scrutinize what's going on in this movie, this is about this couple's relationship to this house and what it means to them, and this is about preservation versus like recreation. Like Eddie is just bit about, like, we knocked down the building and we built a car park. They are very much like, we're willing to share this house with people that respect it. They clearly don't, and we can't get rid of them fast enough. That is the whole movie.
Oh yeah.
And in a different script where they figure this out and are able to drive the demons away, they are able to drive the Deetzes out of the house. You don't need Beetlejuice anymore. He's like the last resort. Like, well, are we going to press this atomic bomb? What else are we going to do? If we don't, we're going to lose to the Japanese. So
the Deetzes are now the Japanese.
Yeah, and Beetlejuice is the atomic bomb. Like, we don't really have a choice anymore. That's kind of the whole thing. Like 90% of this movie is Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis. Like, we love this house. Like she talks about, like, right at the beginning of the movie, I wanted to stay in this house. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to go elsewhere on vacation. I just want to stay here and be a part of this thing. I mean, to the movie's credit, and there's a lot of good about this movie from just a filmcraft point of view, there is some efficient writing for the first act of this. We meet this couple. We like this couple. We spend some time with them. We spend some time with this house, which is like the star of this movie, more so than Michael Keaton is.
Oh,
I mean, it's in the movie more than he is. That's for damn sure. And then we meet the Deetzes, and it's like they're not wholly unlikable, but you get why. And it's one of the things I like about the script. You get why Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin don't like them and why they're frustrated with this whole experience.
Catherine O'Hara is very unlikable in this movie. She's doing her job, but she's very unlikable.
Let me tell you how I love Catherine O'Hara in this. And her doing the Banana Boat song is still, I said it was like the best scene in the movie for me. It's the only scene in the movie I laughed hard at. Like, I can remember, I have memories of my dad who did not laugh a lot. He was a pretty serious kind of, what do you call it? Aspie kind of a guy. But when he laughed hard, and it was like a full-throated belly laugh, like his whole body would shake. And I can still remember my dad's first reaction to the Banana Boat song in that movie with the shrimp at the end, and him just full-throated vibration laughing. I can still feel it to this day. And every time I watch that scene, I think about that, which gives me one of my few happy memories. But I also still laugh at it. And I was watching it today so I would know what to talk about for the podcast. And Catherine O'Hara dancing around the table. I'm like, we had pulled into the driveway by that point, and so we were watching it in the car. And thank God, because I'm like dying laughing in the front seat watching this thing. The whole cast of characters around that table, all like really going for it and just letting the scene be funny. It's so good. But back to the only issues with this movie, like I said, is I don't know if there's enough story for 90 minutes. This thing's a little slight. And they definitely repeat a lot of the same beats throughout the second and third act. And the stuff about the marriage at the end came out of fucking nowhere, has no payoff other than I don't think they knew how to end the movie. Like we need a big. It's like they wrote the ending and they're like, we need this to be bigger. They need this to be more impactful. Well, I don't know. How would we try to have him marry her? Okay, well, what's the implication of them being married? What does that accomplish? I don't know. Let's just do it.
I think they should have definitely put in at least a couple of comments about like Beetlejuice getting his green card to the living world or something like that in order to make the marriage scene make a little more sense.
Right.
But
if the marriage is so that he can come to the real world and then he can just be this giant agent of chaos, I needed to see the not the symptoms, but I needed to see the results of them, because the whole thing is like, don't let out Beetlejuice, don't let out Beetlejuice. Well, we're gonna let out Beetlejuice. Okay. Well, here's what happens if you wake up Godzilla. Here's what will happen. And then they wake up Godzilla, so now Godzilla has to destroy Tokyo. My second Japanese reference of the podcast. Like,
we're on a roll.
This is a weird show. Why does he keep doing that?
Godzilla was created because of the Japanese being upset about the nuclear attack about them. So you connected those two. The other thing in the story a lot of people don't remember about is kind of Lydia's arc of being the goth girl who's, doesn't want to be alive, either just because of what's been happening in her life, loss of her birth mom and such.
Which they do not talk nearly enough about.
They don't. And then obviously the Maitlands, Adam and Barbara, which is Alec Baldwin and Geena Davis, of course, not being able to have a kid, and they've been trying, and they become surrogate parents to Lydia, and it becomes a defense of their child as well, even though surrogate child when they're about to be exorcised and they're still fighting, not so much for their own existence, but so this girl who they've come to love will not be married off to this demonic poltergeist, basically. And I think that really works. Again, I agree that the marriage thing, for the green card, especially with the whole DMV thing, could have been used and pushed better. And it was not. And that saddens me. But I think overall, for the audience, I think they were going for this worked. It's not Exorcist where it's like 2.5 hours. The last 30 will actually be the exorcism. But again, if you read the Exorcist book, a lot of it is their investigation on, is she possessed, or is she just mentally ill? What's happening here? But with Beetlejuice, it's what I call a fast track movie. We're here to do something. We're here to have fun. We don't necessarily need to dig into the deep end stuff. This isn't Gone with the Wind.
Well, let me raise an objection. It's on trial. I feel like, again, you're resting entirely on style, and that makes the movie a bit shallow.
It does.
And look, turn off the podcast. Me and you are and Chae are having a drink, and we're just talking about the movie. I probably don't say that. I probably go right along with the tenor of the conversation of, oh, isn't this movie fun? Here's the fun stuff about the movie. But anytime I start to scrutinize this thing, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna need a little more here than here's this sort of theme park attraction kind of a movie where we do some light scaring and we're done now. And I'm like, but what was it? What was this about? Well, the things that it were about were only barely touched on, and then we ran away from them so that we could do more. Blah, 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 blah,
Right. And what I would say is, I agree, and I think that issue came from the fact that the script was longer and much darker, and when they cut things out, some of the things that were lost were probably lost because they were in scenes that were too dark, and the writers, either because they felt their vision was being destroyed or didn't find a way to still have that in there correctly, it was lost. And so then Burton's still burgeoning style that we weren't used to yet, is really what grabbed people and made them enjoy this movie. Because again, if you ask anybody on the street, like, hey, here's $5, tell me the plot line of Beetlejuice, 20 words or less. It's like, well, these two people have a house and they die, and these people move into the house after they die, and they don't want them in there because they're ghosts, and so they hire this psychopath to get them out, and hijinks ensue.
Well, it also sounds very much like your neighbor's version of a feud that some other neighbors had.
Right, and it's like, this felt like another, I mean, it wasn't about ghosts, but it felt like The Burbs.
I was just thinking about that when Chae brought up the neighbor thing. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like The Burbs.
Just with ghosts and shit. But I would agree that this movie is very, very just stylistic. It's the same thing with like Christopher Nolan's Batman films. There's a lot going on, but it doesn't feel like a Batman movie. Like, again, coming back to Tim Burton, I remember a lot of people like Batman Returns is my favorite Batman movie of all time. I don't like The Dark Knight. Fight me. I don't care. Because Batman Returns feels like a Batman movie.
Hang on. Hot take. Batman Returns is the worst of the four, including Batman and Robin. Fight me.
On the next On Trial, or the new show we have to create, because I think they've already done it.
The duel.
The duel. It's Batman Returns versus Batman and Robin.
I will happily have that fight.
Oh yeah, no, let's do it. If you like that idea in the comments, folks, give us a thumbs up.
I've never wanted to hit Tim Burton more than having to sit through Batman and Robin, but that's not what we're here to discuss.
Right? No, but the thing
Batman Returns.
Batman Returns. Yeah. But I think Tim Burton would have rather been hit than watch it as well. So I mean, you're probably in the same boat. But no, one of the issues that this has is that, like, The Dark Knight and even Dark Knight Rises. How do you try to remember?
Just keep going.
Sorry. Anyways, one of the issues is that, like, the Chris Nolan films all feel like Chris Nolan movies. They don't feel like Batman movies. And I heard a lot of people say the same thing about Batman Returns. And Beetlejuice is definitely a Tim Burton movie. Yes. And you go to Tim Burton for the style and the artwork and the amazing effects they would do through stop motion. The stories there is in a very backwards way, where normally the set design and how it looks is the background to this great story. With a lot of Burton stuff, it's the other way around, and I think that's why we love it. Is because we kind of get lost in this world, and even we kind of get lost in the story a little bit, or like lost for what the story is, we have this amazingly beautiful world that we get to inhabit for 90 minutes. And that's what's fun about it.
But this is why Robert and I yell and scream about James Cameron's Avatar. Because it's much the same argument. What a beautiful world this is. This is a movie people saw 2, 3, 10 times when it first came out, because they wanted to live in Pandora, because they wanted to escape this mortal coil, and that's why it made like $2 billion. Except that Avatar as a movie structure sucks. It's terrible. But it's like, I don't care. I'm not a movie person. I love the way it looks. I want to be those aliens, that sort of thing. And it's hard to reconcile those two things. So I want to throw this out there. Play a little game real quick. As we've been talking, and I was like, what director maybe could have gotten a hold of this instead in an alternate universe that would have given me more of what I wanted, bigger stakes, this movie to be about something, but keep the same aesthetic. And I'm thinking Wes Craven.
Definitely.
And if you want to throw some ideas out there, the other one I thought of is if I can't get Wes Craven to do this, or Wes Craven turns it into a Nightmare on Elm Street Part 7, and I have to throw him from the building. My other thought was David Fincher. I think David Fincher maybe doesn't quite keep the light horror, childish aesthetic that it's got going on, but I think David Fincher would have given us a meteor product.
I think John Carpenter could have done the same, especially if you kind of looked at it approached it the same way he did The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely might have done pretty well too, or whoever the fuck directed Baron Munchausen with Robin Williams.
I'd have to look that one up. What was the first one you said, Chae?
David Lynch. He's also known for a very strange style that's kind of similar to Tim Burton's.
Yeah, David Lynch would have had people walking out of the theater going, I don't understand. I don't know what I just saw. All right.
Yes, but it would have been studied for years and years afterwards, only to have David Lynch be like, it's a fucking movie. It is what you want it to be.
What do you think it means? I hate you, David Lynch. Just tell me what you're talking about. So wrapping up here, I think Michael Keaton gives a great performance in this. Very underused because again, we're spending a lot of time with everybody else. But when he's on screen, he's a lot of fun. I kind of taking it all the way back to the beginning of the podcast. They make everything into a musical. There's a Spider-Man musical. There's a Rocky musical. So I'm not, not that long ago I saw
Spider-Man
Mean Girls.
musical is cursed.
I saw the Mean
first
Girls
kid that tried to
musical.
do that almost died.
Wow. Not that
Right.
long ago I saw Spam-A-Lot, which is a musical of the fucking Monty Python and the Holy Grail, for Christ's sake. So I'm not surprised they turn, they just kind of, there seems to be an interest in grabbing, an old IP and go, well, let's turn this into a musical and see what happens. And gosh darn it, people love musicals, as we know. So that element of it doesn't surprise me. There was I think it was in the Honest trailer where, and this came up when Ronnie and I were talking about Ghostbusters, about how stuff in the 80s was clearly meant for adults, but if kids watched it too, all the better. And if kids did watch it and it was a giant hit, especially with families, there was always a cartoon. And, so it's like there was like a Rambo cartoon and a RoboCop cartoon and obviously Ghostbusters. And as we're talking about tonight, there was a Beetlejuice cartoon. And, there's all these different ways without having to make more movies that you can keep this stuff relative in the culture and get a new fan base, to the point where I have two children, they're 10 and 13, and they love this thing. And they've been, at least my daughter has been looking forward to Beetlejuice all year. So that's my final thought on Beetlejuice 1988. You want to give your final thoughts here, Chae, and then Dorian?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Beetlejuice 1988 was a fantastic designer's wet dream.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful dark fairy tale set from the perspective of the ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a fantastic thing to show your kids if they start showing signs that they're a little bit creepy and they want to get into a little more spooky shit.
Yeah. It's a great light horror, children's horror kind of movie.
It is. It's a fantastic light horror. And honestly, it's got enough of a modern pacing that you don't have to bore the shit out of your kids with Universal monsters, and I fucking love Universal monsters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the shit that I grew up on, but I understand that the pacing on it is a little weird for someone who is used to modern movies.
Yeah, with kids, if you don't get the star of the picture in the first act, you're gonna lose them. I'll tell you, that's why my taking this back to Star Wars, why my kids have struggled with A New Hope, because outside of that first, chase of the Carillion Corvette, nothing happens in the first act. Nothing until they kill Luke's parents. There's a lot of talking in that movie, because I can remember showing it to my kids and then both looking at me going, when does something happen in this movie? And I'm like, we're getting there. There's going to be a whole thing. I'm like, been 30 minutes. Like, oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it's a very, very different pacing style.
Yes.
And not a lot of people that grew up on 90s and 2000s movies will enjoy those older movies. But, I mean, this is paced really well for modern audiences.
Oh, yeah. If you have somebody born after 1995 and you would like to torture them because they were bad, show them The Deer Hunter. They'll apologize for whatever they did. All right. Take me home, baby doll. Dorian, your final thoughts.
Again, I think this movie rests, strangely enough, even though he's only on screen for 17 minutes, with the title character of Michael Keaton's standout performance as Beetlejuice. This movie would also show Warner Brothers that Tim Burton had the ability and the style to direct Batman. This Batman was supposed to start filming in '87 with Burton at the helm. They shut it down because they didn't think he could do it. So he would take Beetlejuice instead, and they were like, "Hey, if it works, we'll think about it." And when Beetlejuice worked so well, they were like, "Fuck yes, let's do Batman." And so, again, this movie is, yes, it's light on story. And again, I'd love to get my hands on the original script just to see, where it went. I haven't found what I can see as a approved copy of, like, yes, this was the original script. Here it is. They're never going to make it. So here you go online. But I think, again, the style of this movie does let it stand out. And the story and the characters are fun enough, and that everyone pulls their weight to make a light story, basically make a light sandwich feel filling like a full meal. And that's again why it stands out to me. And again, it's Michael Keaton at his most unhinged, having the time of his life, and again making this character so iconic that still to this day, every Halloween, after even 36 years, it is still a costume you can find at any costume store, and you will at least see one Beetlejuice if you're out and about doing Halloween, especially this year with the sequel coming out.
Yeah, just to do it, and because we do have a little bit of time. Any expectations for the sequel? Anything that you're worried about, Chae?
How are we talking about? Oh, sorry.
To be completely honest, I don't have a whole lot of expectations for the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some of the trailers and stuff, and to be completely honest, it looks like a lot of what I really fucking loved about the original is gone.
Yeah.
They're not using the Harryhausen style stop motion. The backgrounds look very clean and crisp and not very theatrical, and it doesn't really look like a Beetlejuice movie to me.
So you know how I've been saying for the past hour, Beetlejuice barely features Beetlejuice? I don't think anybody making this movie made that connection. And I think this is going to suffer from the same problem a lot of new movies suffer, remakes or, legacy sequels. And that is they assume the attraction is the title character. So they base everything on that. And I just spent the last half an hour or so arguing the appeal of this movie is the house, the relationship between Geena Davis and Alec Baldwin, the antagonism between the Dietzes and the Maitlands, as much as they don't do enough with it, at least it's there, the connection between Lydia and the Maitlands. Beetlejuice is, yes, he's the title character, but he's barely the attraction to this movie. There's so much more in it that I think, whether people realize it or not, wins them over. But if you're taking the lizard brain approach to making a legacy sequel, you forget all about that and you go, oh, we have to base this entire thing about a tired, old, making spaghetti in the kitchen, Michael Keaton. And it's like, no, you dumbasses. That is not why we like this movie. So,
Him in the Flash, though, is still the best part of that damn movie.
That movie is so bad, it didn't take much. You're not wrong.
The bar was so low, we just kind of over it.
Yeah. We can
do some jazz hands to make it look, fancy.
So yeah, I am. Robert and I at the start of the year looked at the year of our Lord 2024 in films, and we both kind of had this, oh God, oh no, oh Lord, reaction to most of the stuff we were going to talk about on Damn You Hollywood as the year unfolded. And I remember we got to Beetlejuice, and I went, ugh, I am not looking forward to this at all. And then I saw the trailers for it, and my fears were absolutely founded. But that's just me. Dorian, your thoughts on the sequel, your hopes, your dreams.
My fantasies.
Yes.
Nightmare Before Christmas, bringing it home.
By the way, how many times I was walking out of work today, and I just kept thinking to myself, calm down, Pavarotti, you fuck.
Right?
Look, when you can finally, when you put something in my head and I can't let it go, you win.
Yay! Calm down, Pavarotti, you fuck.
Yeah, I got to get on TeePublic and make a t-shirt.
Absolutely. I just want the first one.
You got it.
Hashtag Dorian Price 2024. Now, again, I'd wanted to do a Beetlejuice sequel myself for years, and partially because I wanted Tim Burton to produce it, I wanted to direct it because I love his style, and I think, again, a good story could have pushed forward. And again, I believe, and I've shared it with a lot of people. And again, I know they're not blowing smoke up my ass. They're like, fuck, I want to see that movie. And I'm like, well, I just need to finish the pitch and get it into Warner Brothers and we see what happens. And it was a little late, coming in. But when I saw the trailer, I was like, okay. Because first of all, Jenna Ortega is a fantastic actor. She was great as Wednesday. I'd love to see her do more of that. I'd love to see Burton actually do just a full-on Addams Family movie. He was one of the original choices, and he turned it down back in the 90s when Barry Sonnenfeld would take over. But he does have a thing, and we give him shit for this all the time. It's like you start liking an actor, and you grab onto it. And he got shit on about 2 years ago, and because he was an idiot. And they were like, for someone who loves black and white so much, there's not a lot of black people and people of color in your movies. And instead of him going, holy crap, you're right. Wow. I'm sorry. I never actually thought about it.
What was his reaction? You're right. I don't like black people. What are you talking about?
Pretty close. His reaction was, well, they just don't usually fit my aesthetic. It's like, oh my God, shut up.
Phrasing.
Anyway, yes, like, work the arms, you asshole. Work the arms. Our Burton puppet is broke. But no, it's I was excited to see him come back to something that he had nailed, in my opinion, so well, and that's the original Beetlejuice. And we've been talking about a sequel for years. I'm concerned with because it kind of looks like we're just doing the same damn movie all over again. And I'm not saying mine was far superior and they should make mine instead. But I had a similar thing happening in mine, because it looks like the kid's going to be upset at her mom, and Beetlejuice is going to get out, and he's going to try to kidnap her or some shit, and blah, blah, blah. And we've just now shoved more characters in. We got Beetlejuice's ex-wife, Chae.
Yeah. Oh my God. So this is how did Han Solo get his vest fucking thing? My understanding is that, and don't get me wrong, I will watch Monica Bellucci in a movie where she just works a register of McDonald's. I don't give a shit.
She reads the phone book. We're in.
Yeah. Monica Bellucci will now read from you the dictionary. Yes, I'm all in.
In a low cut.
Yes. No, I lapsed. But my understanding is like the ring in the wedding scene. He takes a finger out and he pulls the ring off, and she's like, she meant nothing to me. And that's what we're going to draw a circle around and go, new character. And I'm like, go fuck yourselves.
Because everybody wanted to know who the person who had that ring was. And again, right with the Han Solo thing, it's like, I don't care how he got his gun.
Yeah.
I want him to go on an adventure, almost Indiana Jones style.
Right.
And we have fun.
Look, young Han Solo and young Chewbacca, because they owe somebody money, rob a train. I'm in.
Yeah, great. Again, all they need to do, and I know we're not talking about Han Solo, but this does tie into the thoughts about Beetlejuice, is all they needed to do was walk in with a pitch going, young Han Solo, young Chewbacca, rob a train. Think great train robbery, except this time it's Han Solo and Chewbacca, and we're in space. And the exec's going to go, stop drilling, you hit oil.
Yep.
And we're good. Let's go.
It's $50 million. Go. $50 million. I need $150 million. Fuck yourself.
Right? Get out of here.
Sorry, the studio was run by adults.
We'll get Ron Howard to direct it. And every Easter egg you've ever wanted. And I think that's what we're going to have with this one. And it saddens me because I know, Mark, you and I argued about this with Sleepy Hollow. But again, the way I'm dressed tonight is because I love Tim Burton. Tim Burton is an inspiration to me, and the way he directs, I've taken a lot from in my own style of directing and how I frame my shots. But the saddest thing is, and I made this joke the other day, is the Tim Burton I loved and looked up to is no longer with us. Like, I made the joke of like, you've lost that artistic feeling.
Whoa.
I won't do the whole song. Bring back that artsy feeling, cause it's gone.
Not anytime soon, but someday you're going to be on like an episode of Sessions with me and Jesse, because it's just like, all right, and it's going to be like Dorian sings.
Get Dorian a case of beer and let's see what happens. Strap in, everybody. Did he say strap in or strap on? No, the whole point is like, again, I want a Beetlejuice sequel. I didn't just write one for the hell of it. I wrote one because I thought that there was a storyline that we could follow, especially with the cartoon show being Beetlejuice is kind of this anti-hero that hangs out with Lydia, and they go through the underworld and they're like stopping shit and shenanigans that happen. Sometimes it was because Beetlejuice caused it. Sometimes it's because he's the only one who can fix it. And I really thought doing a movie that could create a bridge between the first movie and the cartoon show being like, this is basically the cartoon show is now basically Beetlejuice 3. Go watch it. You know, it's fun. This seems like tired old people going, hey, it worked back then. Why not?
It worked in Blazing Saddles.
Literally watched that Robin Hood Men in Tights the other day. But no, so my hopes are, again, with everything like this, anytime Burton steps back up to the plate, and a couple times he's done well, but every time Burton steps back up the plate, I'm like, I know I'm going to go watch it. And I just hope, like, please, I want to see that creative, crazy young artist again, even though it's in the hands of this, I think he's like 64, 65, somewhere around in there. You know, I want to see the young, happy artist, or young, depressed artist, I guess, but happy in his depression and what he got to do. And, you know, he even said in interviews, I love be able to work through my demons. And, you know, I'm very lucky to have this job as a director because that's, you know, what I can do now. And it just...
Look, I hope we get a Top Gun Maverick. My instincts tell me we're going to get a The Crow, but I'm hoping for Top Gun Maverick here.
Tim?
I think we need to just start pissing Tim Burton off. Because it seems like all of the really great stuff that he's made has been because he's been real pissed off with
I'm going to get like, me and a couple of like pro wrestlers. We'll all wear like Letterman jackets and just show up to Tim Burton's house and like shove him. Like, so we'll bring a locker to push him in. And then when he emerges like a butterfly, like I have an inspiration because
he looks young. He looks like this look again. It's like, and we will do Stain Boy.
Comes out, The Cure is playing. Like, I'm ready. I finally have the inspiration I was looking for.
It's like he regenerates like fucking Doctor Who style.
Hang on, I'm putting this. I'm assuming this is one of your friends, and she says, and a lot of cocaine. And yes, and a lot of cocaine is the phrase that phase here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network. So that brings us to the end of our show. I had a nice little conversation here, about as long. Finally, I say, hey, we're going to be done in an hour. And guess what? We're done in an hour. Oh, my God.
I kept looking at the time counter. Like when you asked me, like it had just hit like 1 hour. And I'm like, all right, cool. I got to do this in like 4 minutes.
and now I have some notes.
Scotty,
do any of you know what the word succinct means?
Scotty, I need warp speed in 5 minutes or we're all dead. It's like a German
people. We order lunch verbose. Oh my God.
It's like a German opera. Their operas last 2 weeks.
At work, people ask me like, "Why don't you ever sit with the inmates?" I'm like, I don't want to encourage them to talk. Like, I got shit to do. Let's go. Kind of have the same approach to my podcast. All right. Now we all know I'm an asshole. This week, speaking of which, myself, Dorian, and Alexis Hana, we did The Offer from Paramount Plus, which was about the making of The Godfather with Block of Wood Miles Teller, who was not a block of wood on that particular television show. Next week, well, first, the newest high priest of the Radulich and Broadcasting Network cult, Dorian Price, and I will be doing an on trial yet again. I think just because he likes the sexy theme. He's like, more of this, please. I don't know. There it is. We'll be doing one for Prometheus because we've never talked about it. And this will be Dorian's first at-bat with hosting his own show. And I will be there to hold his hand and whatever else I need to hold. So that's this Sunday.
On trial.
On trial.
After hours.
So that'll be this Sunday at 9:00. And then 8,000 people will be on Beetlejuice 2. The current roster has more people than the Wu-Tang Clan, and it consists of myself, Robert Winfrey, Alexis Hana, Jason Teasley, Dorian Price, and Mick Wanamaker. Chae, you're not on that one?
No, I actually chose to be on this one rather than the next one.
Okay.
Do you want to be?
Because I have 2 people that I have to make costumes for. I'm not gonna
No. You're fine. It's just, you can always participate in the comments. So that's Monday.
I will absolutely be the peanut gallery.
Sounds fantastic. And then Thursday, a week from tonight, Ronnie Adams, who's actually supposed to be here tonight, but he's, I think, at a convention or some shit. He will be on an episode of the Whiskey Rebellion that he pitched. We're going to be talking old school wrestling. We're going to be talking AWA, Mid-Atlantic. Going to be talking, that one down south. Doesn't matter. I can't remember anything anymore. Talking old WCW, whatever else comes to mind. Old wrestling. That's what we're gonna do. Von Erichs, that sort of thing. Ric Flair. Woo!
That's not real wrestling.
Oh my God, shut up. So that's what we got going on Thursday. Chae, why don't you tell them where they can find you, and let me figure out when the next time you're going to be on is.
I am Chae Tate of Tate FX. If you need any props, costumes, or makeup done, I did this makeup, and I usually do the makeup for Dorian Price and Make Wanamaker on this show. You can find me on Facebook at Tate FX or on Instagram at Tate FX. We will be doing a project here very soon where I will be starting to work some FX makeup with some of the local actors that we've got. If you want to participate in that, go ahead and hit me up on Facebook at Chae Tate or at Tate FX.
The next show that from the way I saw it on my calendar is Wicked. I fully expect you to be in green yet again, and this just becoming your thing.
Yes.
No matter what it is we're talking about. Like we're talking about the new Joker movie. Why is she in green? It doesn't matter. The new Venom movie. She's in green again. New Kraven the Hunter. Why is she in green?
We're going to skip the makeup and just dye my skin green.
That sounds like a plan. I'm glad to be a part of this. Decidedly not green is Dorian Price. Dorian Price from Wonder Pictures. If it's good, it's a wonder.
Hey, you said you do it once. So,
Yep.
I mean,
I got my shit in. I'm good.
Count our fucking blessings. But no, yes, Dorian Price at Frankie Pictures on Instagram, Dorian Price Videography and Photography on Facebook. If it needs to be photographed, needs to be filmed, needs to be edited, needs to be created at all, we want to make sure your dream hits the screen in whatever version you want it to be. So as always, hit us up. Frankie Pictures, our motto is you're going to get 4-star quality for 2-star prices. And I'm stealing that from my grandfather, who was also a photographer, but he's dead and he'd get a kick out of it. Keep it rolling. But no, yeah, I'm very excited to be on the next Beetlejuice. Next time you see me, the hair will look similar, but it will also be green because I will be coming to Beetlejuice as Beetlejuice. And yes, I just said it 3 times, so we're all screwed.
All right. Dorian's actually on a bunch of shows in September. We've got the On Trial for Prometheus, Beetlejuice 2. He will be on the review of Ash vs. Evil Dead, which is September 16th. And he'll be on another triple feature, which will hopefully not be 2.5 hours long. We will be looking at Judy, Chaplin, and Stan and Ollie. And if you don't know who any of those people are, you're probably a lot younger than I am. All right. With that said, court is now in recess. Except we weren't in court. This was a plea bargain episode. All right. Well, then we're all leaving the conference table.
Nothing was decided. So like a regular plea bargain or trial.
Great. All right, folks. Thank you for joining us here on Trial for Dorian Price for Chae Tate. I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and Godspeed, little doodle.